All right, this is an interesting little chart here for organizations. And let's see what's going on here and how you can use this understanding to improve your organizational structure and your organization. So, what I'm going to do here is let's do a little bit of sketching here on the screen. So, let's see here. So, first, we have Amazon. And you can see this top node is Jeff Bezos, and then it just splits out. So basically, it's like a binary tree going downwards. Everybody has two or so people reporting to them, and then it just keeps splitting down as it goes. Google, on the other hand, you have Larry Page and Sergey Brin, and then the CEO they hired, and then it basically branches out from the CEO into, it's like it's almost like the Amazon's binary tree, except each person has multiple people under him, and then they have multiple people under them, and it continuously breaks down. Facebook, it started like a social network, and it's more like everybody's kind of connected with everybody over the network. And so that's why you have like maybe little teams at each of these nodes, but all these teams are kind of interconnected with each other. Microsoft, the way it formed, is kind of like multiple organizations within Microsoft, and each of the organizations are competing with each other. Any given organization more or less looks like a combination of Amazon and Google structure. Basically a tree falling downwards. Apple, Steve Jobs was a very powerful personality, so it kind of centers around him. And a lot of people branch out from Steve Jobs in the center here. And some of them may then have organizations under them. Oracle basically breaks down into two organizations, an engineering organization over here and a legal one, which is quite big. And there may be, sales and some other organizations as well in this process. So what you will notice across all of these here are these are big companies, and these organizations were not really planned in the sense that these structures were not planned. They just kind of evolved based on the people that got involved and how they built the organization around themselves. So this is interesting, but I believe there is a better way to do this. And even as your organization grows large, it does not need to be purely, just based on which people end up where. So what do I mean by that? So the first thing is, think about the kind of goals your organization has as a business. Like, I mean, is Oracle's goal really to do a lot of legal work and a little bit of engineering? Probably not. It's just how it has evolved because of the people involved and their strengths. There was probably some strong legal people in the beginning and some strong engineering personality, and so the organization just broke out this way. And so rather than just the organization just kind of breaking out based on who is there, when I build my organization, I would want to think about it this way. Let me explain. So what happens across these structures that get formed in an organization and the boundaries is critical to the success, right? So for the goals, there are two basic goals that a business or organization has. One is serving the customers directly, which I call the front end. And this is basically product and service along with people. So the people basically serve other people in the front end with a product or service. Now, the back end of the organization is basically where we have process and structure. And this allows scale, right? And this allows, the front end allows profitability or profit. So the front end has people, product, and service, which gives us profit. And the back end has process and structure, which gives us scale. So as we saw, these structures in these organizations just kind of evolved. But for our case, we're going to want to define the structure more properly. So what exactly do we need our process and structure to do? Well, one thing we need our process and structure to do is improved communication. So, like here in the case of Microsoft, you can see these organizations are clearly not communicating well, they're just competing. Oracle's engineering and legal may be kind of, separated out. Facebook's structure clearly allows for good communication between people because everybody's kind of really connected. Google may not allow the best communication between, for example, the lower tier here and the upper tier here. There may be a big gap between these. And same with, something like Amazon or even in the case of Oracle. Apple, clearly the communication's good, right? Because everybody's connected, but it might create like a huge overload for this center node here, which if you're Steve Jobs, you can handle. But okay, so communication is one of the things we want to think about in our structure. The next thing we want to think about is the value of, I'll call it the value definition. So what is the value that each of these micro-organizations are providing in that structure? So like this organization is providing legal and this is providing engineering. How valuable is that to the company? Is the company in need of more product? Maybe the company is in need of more design. Maybe the company needs more scale, profit. So you should think about, what does the company need more of? And really think about structuring your organization for the value that each organization can provide, rather than just, here's a great leader and he's just leading this entire organization structure. So I'll come back to that a little bit more. And this value definition should be related to business goals. So it's related to business goals. Okay. And we talked about communication. I'll call it boundary communication, because within the organization, the communication's up to, the people involved internally, but where it gets tricky is across boundaries. So you want to be clear about how do the different boundaries communicate. And then the next thing with structure is that you don't want people down below to feel like they can't grow in your organization. And you want to be able to pull the talent up. And so once you have defined the value for each organization related to the business goals, you can also reward organizations at different levels based on how well they fulfill those goals and meet your needs and metrics. So if the organization really needs improved design, then you're going to want to pull up people and pay them more and bring them to light if they're good designers in your organization. So what you're going to want to do in this structuring is that based on the goals and needs of the company, create a value system that adds rewards in both, whatever your pay structure might be, as well as position. Right? So, okay. Now, as we're thinking about, how we might want to organize, you're also going to want to think about the different types of people. So, the different types of people can be thinkers, doers, the go-getters, the sellers, the deal makers, and negotiators, the technical experts, and maybe positive people. So people who make the organization positivity creators. Then there are people who might be managers and process creators. So these people can help you with the process. Then you might have those people who are highly vocal in your company. So you don't want to promote people just because they're vocal, but for certain goals, you might want people who are more vocal than others. Highly vocal, then there might be people with a high work ethic. So if you're going through turbulent times and you need to create positivity, you need to bring out the people who have a high work ethic so you don't get a lot of quitters. People who will stick through tough situations, and so on. So once you consider all of these things, you can really start to think about your organization. You should think about, each kind of customer that you need to serve, and really start to think about, how you're going to form this organization and what are your business goals. So let's see if I can erase this. So I'm going to erase here this types of people. Actually here. All right. So what you can then do is think about, your external stakeholders, your internal stakeholders, and your customers, your investors, your founders, and whoever else are your stakeholders. And you can take this into account in terms of how you're going to structure your organization as well, so that everybody feels happy in the organization and the way things are. So let's say you have a big sales goal, and in order to accommodate this sales, you also have a big engineering goal. So let's say that your company is going to basically have two parts. It's going to have engineering and sales. And let's say these are your major blocks. And then let's say that within engineering, you are going to have infrastructure. I'm just going to keep this simple. And let's say you're going to have mobile. So let's say that these guys are working on your mobile device things. And then let's say within sales, you are going to have your internal and external, let's just say. Now, let's say you design this structure, and above all this, let's say you have management. So let's say you've got your, I'll just call it management. Now what you might say is assign, this structure is not based on who is in the organization, it's just based on what the organization needs. It needs a management, it needs an engineering, and it needs sales. And then it needs some infrastructure, mobile, under engineering, and it needs internal and external sales teams. All right. Now let's say that when you start the company, you are the only person who runs everything. So you do the management, you do the engineering, you do the sales, and you do all of this. So if that's the case, what you're going to do here is basically put yourself under each of these boxes. And then as you grow, look to basically go, oh, okay, you know what? I don't want to be doing all of this. I would rather just focus on the management and the engineering and get some other people involved for my sales part of things. Or I'll just do the management and get some other people involved for the engineering and for the sales part of things. So whichever roles each person handles, put those people in those given boxes. Also, before you do that though, think about the value add from each of these pieces to your organization. Let's say that the engineering work that you're doing, the infrastructure and the mobile, are not so important and you're just selling, let's say, insurance. So if you're selling insurance, your sales is really important. And having a mobile app to look at the insurance is nice, but it's not going to make or break your company completely. So maybe you'll say that, my sales is worth $1 million to me, but my mobile app is only worth $200K to me, right? And maybe my infrastructure is worth $500,000 to me. So that makes my engineering organization worth $700K. So based on the goals of the company, you can take each of these sections, each of these organizational groups, and give them the value that they bring to the company to create, make the company be worth what it is. And then when you're basically getting somebody for, let's say, working on your sales organization, such as the internal part of the sales organization, so then that, the value that you have for quality sales is this 1 million. And this will help you determine how much you should be paying the salespeople that you're bringing in. And yes, if they can, you bring in someone who can increase this value of the sales section and you would like that, then of course you can do that. But you may want to, if you're going to make this 2 million, maybe you want to make this 1.4 million by bringing in some more people in the engineering section as well. So you can keep your organization balanced and your processes will be fluid, and you will be able to make sure that you don't have too many, bottlenecks. For example, like if you have like one of these boxes was QA and one was, let's say, engineering, if your QA increases, you should also equally be increasing your engineering, so you don't have a lot of QA people just sitting around wasting time. So doing it this way, your organizational chart and structure by allocating values will also make sure that you don't have a lot of resources being wasted because you overhired in one department and did not hire enough in another. And this is a common problem I've seen in several startups and organizations where one strong manager goes out and hires a lot of people, and another weaker manager maybe, or a self-sufficient manager rather than weaker, decides to keep doing everything themselves, and his part of the organization just keeps getting overloaded and doesn't grow. It's just the same person doing everything while the other departments are growing. And that later causes problems and things are imbalanced, and then some new management comes in and they try to restructure everything, but it's hard to get company culture to change and things like that. So it's better to think about this from the beginning and align your organization and its structure with the goals that you have. And this also creates a sense of fairness in people, because they know that how much is the value of the department that they're working in, and how much is their contribution, and they can get a proportional value out from being in the company. And this gives people a sense of teamwork and fairness, and will in general increase the value of your company, as well as allow you to grow in a more structured way than all of these examples that we saw. Okay? I won't do any specific examples now, because I think it's already gotten long enough, and I think you would have understood the concept. So thank you. This was Aditya Mittal, and if you like to check out more of my content, you can see it on acmetutor.com. I also have a summer entrepreneurship program called acmeentrepreneur.com here in the Bay Area. All right, enjoy. Bye.